So good morning, everybody. Good morning, our distinguished colleagues, researchers, patients, advocacies, patients, and ERN coordinators, project managers, and all of you very much interested and close by to the rare disease patients. So I welcome you on behalf of MEP Andriukaitis to this second day of the high-level meeting on European research and innovation ecosystem. Yesterday we had just the first taste of our topics and the focus on how Europe can lead the way in rare disease innovation. And this is actually by strengthening clinical trial, transnational research, competitiveness of research and investment system. So we explored also the different frontiers of science and innovation, and so clearly that Europe has the knowledge, the creativity, the determination to transform the lives of more than 30 million people living with rare diseases and their family, because we need to remember that for one patient there is a family, as we said yesterday, in trouble, and in 30–40% of times even breaking out. So today we turn to the foundation that will make Europe's leader in the rare disease innovation and how this will be possible and sustainable. We will speak about infrastructures and skills, the systems, the capacities, and the people that can turn the discovery into real diagnosis, treatments, and long-term care. So we can say that we will move today from the what of yesterday to the how to build a robust and interconnected infrastructure that really ensure every person with a rare disease, wherever they live in our union, to benefit from the best expertise of Europe and how this can be offered. We will speak how to ensure that Europe does not remain an island of excellence, but becomes a continent of access. So we will examine three critical pillars throughout the day. The first is actually the European health data space and the responsible use of artificial intelligence, especially in healthcare, of course. We will hear how secure, interoperable, and high-quality data can accelerate the diagnosis, support the clinical decision-making, and power research and innovation for rare diseases, but only if we also build robust governance, standards, and trust. So patients and family must see themselves not as a passive data sources, but also as partner in a findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable way, learning that ecosystem will evidence moves faster than the disease. The second point will be, of course, the European reference networks, the beating heart of our collaboration for rare diseases. We will discuss how to formalize and resource the ERNs so that they can truly act as a connective tissue of this ecosystem, linking the clinical excellence, the research infrastructures, biobanks, registries, data platforms, and bringing specialized expertise to every corner of the Union. So no infrastructure function without people, and the dedicated session will focus on workforce development and the formalization of a ERN academy, which will be important to equip clinicians, researchers, and allied professionals with specialized skills needed across the life course of a rare disease. And this includes training, education, tutoring, for advancing diagnostic and therapies, to create multidisciplinary care, to exploit digital tools at the best, to create cross-border collaboration and meaningful partnership with patient organizations. The third, but not last pillar, will be how infrastructure translate into earlier and more equitable access, newborn screening, advanced diagnostic and innovative orphan medicine. The expert involved will explore how to scale and harmonize the programs, integrate genomic technologies, and ensure that promising innovation do not remain confined to a few centers of a country. These discussions are not technical. We will, of course, involve technical aspects, but we want to have a deeply politically and profoundly ethical discussion, because infrastructure and skill determine who is diagnosed, who is treated, and who is left behind. And so a postcode must never define a patient identity. So all of today's conversation must feed directly into the declaration on the innovation and care ecosystem for rare and complex disease, and the roadmap that will follow. So the outcomes of this discussion should help us to define how to consolidate and fund a sustainable ERN ecosystem, how to scale newborn screening and advanced diagnostics, and build a trustworthy data and AI environment under the European Health Data Space serve clinicians, researchers, and patients alike. So the task before us is very urgent. Fragmentation, as we heard yesterday, is still there, but we are discussing to overcome. Workforce gaps and uneven infrastructure are not abstract systems flows. They are a daily reality of families searching for answers. So I invite all of you to exchange, to be candid, and also to give your ideas, your commitment in a concrete way. And we are sure that with your expertise and shared responsibility, this high-level meeting will become a turning point, as we said yesterday, from pilots program to systematic program, and from isolated excellencies to integrated equity, and also from an ambition on paper really to impact the society and to improve our people's lives. So today we have a big opportunity. The discussion of today will be also important for the meeting tomorrow. And I'm very honored and pleased to introduce MEP Andriukaitis, my partner in this adventure with you, for the introduction of the day and the vision of the day. Thank you very much.
I think Maurizio is great. And good morning for everybody. And morning is really good, because we have in our room worldwide known prominent speaker, Sir Michael Marmont. I think we can applaud to him. Distinguished guests, colleagues, like-minded friends. Yesterday, we declared our clear ambitions about research and innovation. Yesterday, we also heard a statement of Ramune Barbora. She and millions of others with rare diseases and disabilities are facing lack of treatment, huge financial hardships, inequalities, vulnerabilities, and lack of income support that ensures their living in dignity. It would be good to show slides, if it is possible. Okay. And of course, you know that about 90% of all, from 36 million patients, they do not have treatment now. They're facing only palliative treatment. And it requires a lot of non-medical technologies. Of course, all those patients with rare diseases need standardized, system-adapted service delivery models across the EU. And it is very important when I speak about ecosystem. Please keep in mind, we need also to think about system-adaptable service delivery models. Next slide, please. Now I can show you that our ideas very closely interlinked with SDG 3 and European Pillar of Social Rights. European Pillar of Social Rights guarantees equal treatment, opportunities, and access to goods and services available to public. The right to specific measures to enhance their equal opportunities. And of course, as you know, it's important important income support. Yesterday you heard that Barbara needs per year more than 6,000 euros. Can you imagine? And where is income support to achieve her remissions? Because she is so suffering. And when we're thinking about policies and budget, we need to keep in mind our capacities to address social determinants of those with rare diseases. That is why I am especially honored to welcome Sir Michael Marmont. His work is a powerful reminder that our European health system were founded on the promise of equity, a principle we must not only protect but actively pursue in every reform. Please, so next slide. He teaches us that healthier society is, and now once again, next slide. Thank you. It teaches us that the healthier society is a fairer society, and it is our duty to ensure these principles guided every decision we make. And you can follow 8 Marmont principles. Please keep in mind, colleagues, we are all responsible when we are speaking about a European social model. And rare diseases issue also belong to social model. And of course, after Sir Michael Marmont intervention, we will turn to a resilient infrastructure and world-class skills that form the very backbone of European Health Union. Without this foundation, innovation remains a blueprint without builders, a discovery that never leaves the laboratory, and a promise that never reaches the patient. As today, part of our discussions is related to infrastructure and skills, I also extend my warmest welcomes to our high-level speaker, Executive Vice President Teresa Ribeira, whose presence this afternoon underscores the strategic importance of our mission. Her strong statement, I quote, "The single market remains Europe's best industrial policy tool to attract investment where Europe wants to lead." And following Draghi report, it shows how our sector can use it in developing of new advanced technologies and tools. And fragmentation is big challenge to use our, and why we need to have comprehensive ecosystem. We will also listen to the representative of our European Reference Network, to the visionary industry representatives, to the tireless patient advocates, and to the national representatives. You are the architects of the change we seek, and I count on you. I count on you very much. Our political commitment, therefore, is to construct the enabling environment that makes breakthroughs possible. Our first imperative is to deliver equitable access, and for every citizen. Leaving no one behind is also our slogan. We must build a pan-European infrastructure that dismantles the geographic inequalities, overcomes medical deserts, and guarantees to every person, regardless of his or her host code, has a clear pathway to advanced diagnostics, comprehensive newborn screening, and innovative therapies. We will transform our health system from a fragmented patchwork of isolated entities into a single, as just Maurizio presented, resilient and interconnected network, where a diagnosis in one country can immediately inform care in another. This is a promise of European solidarity made real, a promise that no one is left behind. Secondly, we must forge a world-class health workforce, because our greatest assets has always been our people. Technology is powerless without the expertise to wield it safely and effectively. We must therefore invest decisively in building Europe's next generation of clinicians, researchers, and data scientists. Otherwise, the problem will be deepened by a problem of rare doctors, as yesterday Hans Kluge rightly pointed. Rare doctors who understand rare diseases, and then you see medical dozers, and then you see how can we achieve diagnosis if doctors are rare. And we need to say to our youngest doctors, please, educate yourself to understand what does it mean rare disease, because rare diseases are not rare. If you can introduce newborn screening, you will see much more than 35 million patients, for sure. That requires more than just training. It demands a creation of dedicated European capacity-building programs that fosters a unique cross-disciplinary skills needed to master the convergence of genetics, artificial intelligence, and personalized medicine. As yesterday reminded to us Manuel Hayter, 4 Ps. Personalized, protective, preventive, and participative. This is a strategic investment in the intellectual capital that will define our global competitiveness for decades to come. This leads to our third and most transformative imperative, the construction of truly unified European health data space, because it would be ground to build strong, genuine European health union. As Commissioner Varhelyi rightly stated, Europe's unique strength lies in the diversity and quality of its health data. Now we must unleash its power. Our mandate is to build an interoperable, high-quality data superhighway under European health data space, one that is purpose-built to accelerate research, empower trustworthy artificial intelligence, and provide the regulatory-grade evidence that our societies demand. And ethical dilemmas also are very important to keeping in mind. This is not merely a technical goal. It is a key to unlock a new wave of therapies and making Europe the most attractive destination for life science innovations in Europe. Let us be clear. This is Europe's industrial policy action. When we are speaking about pan-European ecosystem, we are speaking about industrial policy action, because the health sector is one of the biggest economic sectors in Europe. We are much bigger than cars, much bigger than Volkswagens. Some countries are very keen on Volkswagens, but they do not understand that they should be keen on their patients. And we are strong industrial power. As Executive Vice President Teresa Ribeira reminded us, a strong, integrated single market for health, supported by robust digital and clinical infrastructure, is our greatest instrument for securing leadership. By building this health infrastructure, we are simultaneously strengthening our industrial base, fostering sovereign capabilities, and proving that Europe is a premier global destination for developing the technologies that will transform diagnosis and care and deliver it worldwide. Made in Europe, in area of devices, in area of orphan drugs, in area of diagnostic tools and treatment technologies. It is an excellent opportunity. We are here today not just to discuss, but to design the engine room of progress. Let us use this day to move with unwavering resolve from debate to decision, from ambition to execution, because our main goal is to have declaration in our hands and then to execute it, and then to press Commission, Parliament, Council, national governments, national parliaments, and society to keep it high on the agenda. Why I argue once again, we need to have our next trio to be very active. Our work to forge this infrastructure of hope begins today. I welcome you. I congratulate you are pioneers. Let's go.
Thank you very much. I think we have well and truly woken up. We've had two very passionate and clear calls for action. My name is Tamsin Rose, and I have the great pleasure to be your moderator for this, the morning of the second day of the high-level meeting on rare diseases. And the main attraction has already been previewed by Vytenis Andriukaitis. Of course, it is Professor Sir Michael Marmot. I'm delighted to introduce to you someone who actually needs no introduction. When we spoke outside, he said, you know, I've been working on this issue for 50 years, but things are really moving. Things are really happening. So I think it's going to be very interesting to hear from him. He's the Professor of Epidemiology at the University College of London, but he is perhaps best known to so many of you as having chaired various commissions on inequality in health and the social determinants of health. He did it for the WHO, he's done it for most of the continents around the world, and as you'll hear, there are Marmot commissions happening at local, at national, at regional, and even global level. So let me now please pass the floor to Professor Sir Michael Marmot.
Thank you. And if I could have my slides on. Thank you. When Winnie Byanyima, the head of UNAIDS, invited me to co-chair a high-level council on inequality, AIDS, and pandemics, I said, I don't really know very much about AIDS or pandemics. She said, you know a lot about inequality. And when you invite me to come to this rare disease meeting, I said, I don't know a lot about rare diseases, but my proposition is what I have to say about AIDS and pandemics will apply to rare diseases. Next slide, please. The opening line of my book, The Health Gap, was why treat people and send them back to the conditions that made them sick. When we think about health and health inequalities, usually we think about health care. Very important. My concern is with the conditions that make people sick. Next, please. And related to that, as you heard, I chaired the WHO Commission on Social Determinants of Health. In the wake of the Global Commission, I was invited by the then Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Gordon Brown, to conduct a review on health inequalities in England. We published our report, Fair Society, Healthy Lives, the Marmot Review. I was invited by the European region of WHO to conduct a commission on social determinants of health and the health divide. I did it for PAHO, next slide please, and then the Eastern Mediterranean region. And to remind you, we said on the cover of the WHO Commission, social injustice is killing people on a grand scale. Next slide, please. And when it came to the pandemic, I had just produced my 10-year-on Marmot review, those 8 principles that a young Michael Marmot was elaborating in the photo. We waited 10 years to do the 10-year-on report. We waited only 10 months to do what I call Build Back Fairer, the COVID-19 Marmot review. What I said was, after the pandemic, we will need to build back, but we should not seek to re-establish the status quo. The status quo before the pandemic wasn't good for health. So I said, let's build back fairer. We did something similar for WHO. Next slide, please. And that led to launching, I'm with Winnie Bianima here in Brasilia, this Global Council on Inequality, AIDS, and Pandemics. I co-chaired it with Joe Stiglitz, Nobel Prize-winning economist from Colombia, and Monica Gangos, former First Lady of Namibia. Next slide, please. And in the G20 last year in Brazil, the ministerial statement actually said, to prepare for the next pandemic, countries have to invest in the social determinants of health. Pandemic preparedness is not just getting the public health infrastructure and testing in place. In fact, we know that the countries that were supposed to have had the best preparedness for the pandemic, the United States and the United Kingdom, actually had the worst performance in the first year of the pandemic. It didn't predict at all. What did predict how well countries did was the level of inequality. You want to prepare for a pandemic, you want to prepare for coping with rare diseases, you need to invest in the social determinants of health. Next slide, please. And we had in our council report 4 domains of recommendations: remove the financial barriers in the global architecture, deal with debt relief. Countries couldn't cope globally. Invest in the social determinants of pandemics. And my interest in this was, if you're going to invest in the social determinants of pandemics, it means you're going to invest in the social determinants of health and of rare diseases. Build local and regional production. Joe Stiglitz was very strong about this. The profits of American pharmaceutical companies were more important than spreading vaccine globally. And build greater trust, equality, and efficiency, a multi-sector response, and community-led pandemic infrastructure. Next, please. So let me just give you a flavor of the debt, economic resilience, and capacity to prepare. Next slide, please. This is public and private wealth from 1980. Private wealth went up from $100 trillion to $500 trillion. There's a lot of private wealth about. Public wealth scarcely rose. If you think, well, we can't do anything, we haven't got any money. What? Look at this, next slide. As I said when we launched our report, the billionaires had a very good pandemic. Look at how much the wealth of billionaires increased from around $12 trillion to $18 trillion in the first year of the pandemic. $6 trillion. Now look at what happened to food insecurity. You know the difference between a billion and a trillion? 1,000 times. So 2.5 billion people in food insecurity. I'm not good at sums, but if the wealth of the billionaires went up by 6 trillion, we're talking about $2,500 per person in food insecurity. That increase in wealth that the pandemic gave the billionaires, $2,500 per person in food insecurity in the world. Solve it tomorrow. And then they'd only have $12 trillion of wealth left, those poor billionaires. Do we have the resources to solve these problems? We've got the resources. Do we have the political will to solve these problems? Next slide, please. Imperialist appropriation, 1990 to 2015. This is the flow from the global south to the global north. Labor, big flow to the global north. Materials, a huge flow from the global south to the global north. And the others, not so much. So the way we're solving these global health problems is to take the wealth out of the global south and transfer it to the global north. Next slide, please. The link between income inequality and pandemics across countries. So if we look at what's going on in countries, the Gini coefficient is a measure of income inequality within countries. And the higher the Gini coefficient, the higher the COVID-19 mortality. Next, please. And if we look within countries, this is Brazil. Look at the southeast. It's a clear gradient. The fewer the years of education, the higher the mortality from COVID-19. And then you look at the other regions, the gradient's not always quite so clear, but the illiterate have higher mortality. So you have a pandemic, it doesn't affect people equally. Remember at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, it said everybody's at risk. The prince and the pauper are equally at risk. Not true. Never true. The poorer you are, the higher the risk. Next, please. And in Brazil, Bolsa Familia is the conditional cash transfer program, gives money, cash, to poor people, contingent on children going to nutrition clinics and staying in school. And the greater the participation in the Bolsa Familia program, the lower the HIV/AIDS incident rate. Who would have thought? Give poor people money and they're less likely to get HIV/AIDS. If you haven't got any money, a little bit of money is quite helpful. Next slide, please. And global access to vaccines, as I said at the beginning, is very important. Next. As you know, USAID was, what was the phrase, fed into the wood chipper. USAID spent about $50 billion a year on global health. It's not quite clear. That included PEPFAR, the President's Emergency Plan for HIV/AIDS relief. The initial estimate that was the cancelling of PEPFAR would lead to 5 million extra deaths from AIDS in the next 5 years. There was such a reaction that they pulled back from that, and it's now in a state of uncertainty of how much PEPFAR will continue. It looks like it's about half at the moment, but the US was a major contributor, and it said we're pulling out. You can expect HIV/AIDS to go up. Next slide, please. And trust, what an idea, trust and social cohesion. Next slide. If you look at COVID-19 deaths per million and the percent with high or moderately high trust in national government, the greater the trust in national government, the lower the COVID-19 death rate. If a government says to you, do something, and you think, I don't trust those people, you don't do it. If you trust them, the COVID-19 death rate is lower. Next. Joe Stiglitz, as I said, was the co-chair of this council. He gave me his latest book to read. My challenge was to read it before he published his next book. He writes them faster than I read them. He titled it appropriately, The Road to Freedom. The Road to Serfdom was Friedrich Hayek's book that gave rise to neoliberalism. And Joe Stiglitz is saying, it's over. It's over. Doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. It causes huge problems. And so this was his model, economics and the good society, next, of what we need. Next slide, please. Of what we need to create the good society. He calls it progressive capitalism. I said to him, we would call it social democracy in Europe. He said, yeah, but I was writing for an American audience. So he called it progressive capitalism. Create a learning society, a rich ecology of institutions, rebalancing power relations. You may remember with the WHO Commission on Social Determinants of Health, we said inequities in power, money, and resources give rise to inequalities in the conditions of daily life. Rebalancing power relations, inequalities and social justice, the role of the state, not communism, not Thatcher Reaganism, but the appropriate role of the state. And economics has got to recognize that people are involved. Related to what I said to Tamsin Rose at the beginning, next. I present a catalogue of disasters. In Britain, life expectancy stopped improving, health inequalities got bigger, health for the poorest people got worse, and we see similar things in many other countries. And I get asked, why aren't you depressed? The English city of Coventry said, we're going to be a marmot city. We'll take your 6, now 8 recommendations that you saw, and we'll apply them at city level. So I went to, you've never heard of Coventry because you follow football, but you've heard of Manchester. So I went to Greater Manchester, to the mayor of Greater Manchester, and said, do you know what they're doing in Coventry? If Manchester did this. So we did a report for Greater Manchester. Then I went to the mayor of Liverpool, said, do you know what they're doing in Manchester? Then I went to Newcastle and said, do you know what they're doing in Manchester and Liverpool? Leeds, Kings Lynn, Waltham Forest, Wales. We now have 60 marmot communities in England, Wales and Scotland. Next year, we'll kick off our first in the Republic of Ireland. Spain has invited me and my team to help them with a national strategy on social determinants of health. We did something similar to Norway. I've been going around the world saying, I'm an evidence-based optimist. And a Brazilian colleague said to me in his thick Portuguese English, you're using the English language incorrectly. You're not an optimist, you're hopeful. I said, what's the difference? He said, an optimist knows things are going to get better. A pessimist knows things are going to get worse. You're hopeful. That's the opposite of fear. We don't know things will get better. But if we're hopeful and we work together, perhaps we can change things for the better. Next slide, please. I was in Northern Ireland trying to convince them, so I quoted an Irish poet. History says, don't hope on this side of the grave, but then once in a lifetime, the longed-for tidal wave of justice can rise up, and hope and history rhyme. Next, please. My message is we should have evidence-based hope. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another great start to the day, giving us, evidence-based hope. I love that idea. And for families of rare diseases, I think that's absolutely the core message, because as we heard in our first interventions, so few rare disease families and patients get a diagnosis fast enough. We have so few appropriate treatments there. So evidence-based hope tells us that there is opportunities to go forward. And again, highlighting this is very relevant for the rare disease community, because so many rare diseases are genetically based, so they emerge in childhood. So the social determinants of health, the inequalities, the challenges that are physical, they are social, they're financial, facing rare disease families is very well described. Now, our next speaker would have been MEP Tomislav Sokol, and he sends his apologies. He's not able to join us now, but he'll be joining us just before lunch, so look for him to be coming a little bit later. So now let me pass to our next speaker, who is going to be, so unfortunately Tomislav will not be here. He'll be making his speech a little later. Parliament business is quite challenging today. Our next speaker is going to be Saila Rinna, the Head of Unit on Artificial Intelligence in Health and Life Sciences from DG Connect at the European Commission. Our earlier interventions talked about the potential of the European health data space and AI, and how we so much hope that it will lead to greater knowledge sharing, greater breakthroughs, and the huge opportunities to finally turn knowledge into real breakthroughs. So, Saila, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation to speak to you this morning. I'm afraid my speech will sound a bit bureaucratic after the two very inspirational speeches before. So I come from the AI office of the European Commission, so we are a directorate in DG Connect, and my team is called AI in Health and Life Sciences, and I'm very proud that we joined the AI office in July this year. It's really good for the community and for promoting healthcare and AI, because it's the only application area that is brought up to the level of having a full team working on it. And we are a bit more than 100 colleagues working on the AI Act, the AI safety, innovations, AI for good. And of course, we are collaborating very closely to have all the threads brought together and really to have a holistic view on AI regulation on one hand and promoting innovations in AI. So what we are aiming in the AI office and in the EU in general is to promote trustworthy and human-centric artificial intelligence. And for that, we have the two aspects that were actually mentioned already. So we have the societal impact, but we have also the competitiveness angle and the fact that this is an industrial sector as well, and a very thriving one with a lot of SMEs. So we really also need to make sure that we are supporting those companies, that they stay in Europe and that they have all the right conditions to thrive in Europe. AI offers unprecedented opportunities for interpreting complex medical data, supporting clinical decision-making, and streamlining care pathways. It can assist with prevention, screening, early detection, diagnosis and treatments, as well as follow-up of patients. And the potential of AI is very prominent also in the field of rare diseases, where limited patient numbers, fragmented expertise, and heterogeneous symptoms often delay the diagnosis and complicate the treatment planning. And what the AI can bring here is really to reduce the diagnostic delays, improve accuracy of referrals to specialized centers, and to help with generation of evidence that is essential for developing new therapies. But of course, like everywhere when we are bringing AI into the play, we really need to be careful and look at what are the actual needs for the AI. It's not like bringing the AI for the sake of having it. It's really like also rethinking the procedures, workflows, and the way we work. So AI offers this opportunity of also not just bringing it to the existing workflows and processes, but also rethinking the processes themselves so that the AI can help the best possible way. Of course, then in the field of rare diseases, the European reference networks will play an important role in all this, in deploying AI for the purpose of rare diseases. At the EU level, we have put forward several actions to enhance the foundations for research, deployment and uptake of AI. And these were laid out in April this year in the AI Continent Action Plan, which has 5 main pillars. And the first one is about building a large-scale AI computing infrastructure. And here we are talking about so-called AI factories, so bringing AI to the high-performance computing centers. 19 AI factories have been selected so far, and 15 of them have expressed that they will be focusing on health and life sciences and pharmaceuticals. So to have such computing centers and AI combined, which can accommodate to use cases in healthcare, life sciences, for SMEs, for EU-funded research projects, and this is, of course, great news for us. Secondly, it's important to increase access to high-quality data. The European health data space is of course, the backbone for bringing clinical data, health data, for reuse, and the European Data Union strategy was also announced on the 19th of November, and it enhances the use and availability of data for AI across Europe. It promotes decentralized, trust-based data spaces, and there also the data lab concept was introduced, and this is about bringing the data to the AI factories and to have high-quality data that is processed in secure environments. Thirdly, it's important to strengthen the AI skills and talents, and there are specific trainings on digital health, finance from the Digital Europe program, interdisciplinary training programs bringing together the AI developers and healthcare providers and sort of having this cross-fertilization of knowledge, which is very important. And the AI Continent Action Plan also announced the AI Skills Academy that will promote trainings on AI literacy for different sectors and job profiles, including healthcare. Fourthly, it's important to simplify regulatory frameworks for companies in particular, and there, when it comes to the AI Act, we have already published, or there was an expert group that published guidelines for interplay of AI Act and medical device regulation. We have set up an AI Act service desk that is open for everyone and anyone to ask questions, specific questions on implementation of the AI Act. And also we put forward the digital omnibus, which has the objective to streamline the regulatory compliance. The last pillar of the AI Continent Plan is to promote deployment and adoption of AI and also research on AI. And on the adoption side, we put forward the Apply AI strategy that aims to boost AI adoption to facilitate AI integration and to enhance competitiveness of strategic industries. And there, healthcare and pharma are one of the most important strategic industries. We also put forward in that Apply AI strategy the Apply AI Alliance, which has the purpose of supporting stakeholder collaboration, and we intend to have also healthcare-specific stakeholder group or consultation platform under that structure. There will also be an AI observatory to develop indicators and monitor AI development, so not just talking, but also doing and monitoring the implementation of all the actions that have been put forward. In the field of healthcare, we proposed, or we put forward, let's say, highlighted 4 major flagship actions. And one of them is about European AI-powered advanced screening centers to accelerate introduction of innovative tools for prevention and diagnosis. And the idea is to have a network of hospitals and clinics that would be really testing and creating evidence for AI adoption. And we have now said that it would be cardiovascular diseases and cancer to start with, but it could as well be rare diseases. So this is a very important initiative for us. It is complemented by a network of experts to work on the guidelines, to put together guidelines, to exchange best practices. And this combination of testing, validating, and combining the guidelines and having these conversations between the implementers and the clinics and also experts, including patients and healthcare professionals, we believe is the way to go forward in real world deployment of AI in healthcare. I would like to mention also the 2 other flagships. One is on drug discovery, which is also a very important area. So we want to boost the faster development of drugs and repurposing of drugs. And then the final 4th flagship is about streamlining and enabling quicker market entry of medical devices without compromising safety. Again, a very important area. So looking at this big policy, let's say these big policy guidelines, for sure the rare diseases community can also benefit from all these European initiatives by engaging actively in the different infrastructure projects and, for example, the screening centers initiative that are underpinning the EU AI policy. And this is very much what I'm happy to also discuss further in the panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, we heard in our first 2 opening statements of the day, the importance of today is going from ambition to execution, and that what we're looking for now is political leadership and political will, which means it's a perfect time for me to now pass the floor to Konstantinos Clevoulou, the Director of Research and Innovation and for the Deputy Ministry of Research, Innovation and Digital Policy from Cyprus. And of course, Cyprus has got an upcoming presidency, so please, Konstantinos, the floor is yours. You are most welcome, and we're looking to hear from you the political leadership that Cyprus will be executing. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you so much. I hope I won't disappoint you in your expectation. It is a great honor to be with you here today. And please allow me first to convey the warm regards of our Deputy Minister, Dr. Nikodimos Damianou, who extends his wishes for the utmost success of this meeting. I would also like to express my sincere appreciation for the opportunity to join such a distinguished gathering of experts, united by a shared commitment to improving the lives of those affected by rare and complex diseases. If Salia was feeling intimidating, imagine how I feel. So I represent the government of Cyprus, and as we are about to assume the presidency of the Council of the European Union, we have the opportunity, the advantage to express our perspective about several issues. I'm a physicist with limited knowledge on the subject. But when I was putting together this speech, I thought something struck me, like rare diseases remind us of a simple truth. progress is not measured by how we serve the majority, but how we stand with the few. And at the heart of this progress lies one critical element, infrastructure, which ties really well with today's meeting. Infrastructures, so, are not merely facilities, databases, tools, or systems. They are living networks. They are living networks of collaboration, connecting clinicians, researchers, data, and expertise across borders. They allow knowledge to flow where it is needed and ensure that patients, wherever they live, can benefit from the highest quality care. Within each member state, national infrastructures form the backbone of diagnosis, treatment, and research. They bring together healthcare teams, concentrate expertise, and create the conditions for knowledge to be shared swiftly and effectively. By investing in these infrastructures, we strengthen our ability to address complex medical challenges and ensure that every individual living with a rare disease feels supported, feels recognized, feels cared for. At the European level, we are fortunate to build on a strong legacy. The European Union has invested in a connected ecosystem, linking research, expertise, patient organizations, and data resources. The European Reference Networks, ERNs, stand as a prime example, bringing together the centers of excellence across Europe to tackle rare and complex conditions. They demonstrate what is possible when expertise is shared rather than isolated. Yet, despite the progress, significant challenges remain. Data on rare diseases is still fragmented across registries, hospitals, and research projects, often using different standards that cannot easily be connected. Access to advanced diagnostics remains uneven across Europe, creating inequalities for patients. Clinical trials for rare diseases are difficult to organize, as patient populations are small, conditions vary, and infrastructures are not always aligned. And although the ERNs are effective, they require stronger interoperability, sustainable funding, and deeper integration into national systems to realize their full potential. These challenges point to a common conclusion. To truly strengthen our infrastructures, we must take deliberate action, and we must take it together. At the European level, strengthening rare disease infrastructure means building a unified and interoperable data ecosystem, enabling secure privacy, preserving data shaping, adopting common standards, and ensuring that AI-enabling tools can be used responsibly to improve diagnostics and care pathways. It also means that empowering ERNs give them the tool, status, and funding to operate sustainably, and integrating them more deeply into national care systems so that expertise can reach every patient. And expanding shared research platforms and facilitating cross-border clinical trials to accelerate the development of therapies. For Cyprus, rare diseases are a national priority. They are embedded in our smart specialization strategy because they represent an area where scientific excellence and societal impact come together. Our institutions, researchers, and clinicians are deeply engaged in European efforts, and as a deputy ministry, we are committed to supporting them not only through funding, but also through policy alignment, digital transformation, and active involvement in EU initiatives. As Cyprus prepares to assume the presidency of the Council of the European Union in 2026, we will carry these priorities forward. We are committed to fostering a balanced and forward-looking dialogue that strengthens Europe's research and innovation ecosystem, a key driver of competitiveness and sustainable prosperity. This includes advancing research and innovation in key strategic areas, including health and rare diseases, where coordinated European action is essential to delivering meaningful benefits for citizens. In that spirit, I am delighted to invite you to join us in one of our flagship events of our presidency. It is called Advancement of Treatments for Rare Diseases, and it's taking place on the 5th and 6th of March 2026 in Nicosia in Cyprus. The conference is organized in collaboration with one of our leading institutions of the island, the Cyprus Institute of Neurology and Genetics, will bring together distinguished speakers and experts from across Europe and beyond, with the aim to strengthen collaboration, foster innovation, and advance research on rare disease therapy. Its goals align fully with the EU's ambition to make Europe the global beacon for life sciences by 2030. Having said that, I will be delighted to see you there at the event. In the audience today is Professor Leonidas Phylaktou, who is the CEO and Medical Director of the Cyprus Institute of Neurology and Genetics, and you can reach out to him later for further details. I'm sure that he will know more on the content than me. Ladies and gentlemen, looking ahead, we must remain committed to strengthening both national and pan-European infrastructures for rare and complex diseases, ensuring that innovation translates into real-world impact for patients. By collaborating, sharing knowledge, and fostering partnerships, we can turn these infrastructures into true engines of progress. Thank you very much, and I wish you an interesting meeting.
Thank you very much, and it was really useful to get a little bit of early insight into both how Cyprus views the role of health and rare diseases in its national perspective, and also how it's integrated it into its presidency platform. And thank you for that, and the warm invitation to participate in your conference in March 2026. We're now coming to the end of the sort of first section of this today's activities, which was the different political messages. And now we're going to have a panel session that is going to look in a little bit more detail, particularly at what we can do to reduce the diagnostic delays, which is so much a feature for the experience of rare disease patients and their families. So I'm going to invite my speakers to come up and join me, and then we will go through this. So let me please invite to join me Alain Coher, the President of the Commission on Industrial Change for the European Economic and Social Committee. Alain, please come and join me. I have Hélène Dolphius from the European Reference Network for Rare Eye Diseases, ERNI, the coordinator, and also a consultant at the University Hospital of Strasbourg with specialization in clinical genetics and ophthalmology. Please take a seat. I'd like to invite Lisbeth Gerris, a professor of biomedical engineering at the University of Liège and the Catholic University of Leuven, the executive director of the VPH Institute of Belgium, which is the Virtual Physiological Human Institute. So please come and join me. Jens Habermann, the Director General for Biobanking and Biomolecular Resources Research Infrastructure, the European Research Infrastructure Consortium, which is quite a mouthful, but I'm sure you'll tell us more about it. And Saila Rina, who's coming back to join us, for the head of unit for artificial intelligence in health and life sciences. And I need to pass the sincere apologies of Ilaria Galetti, who unfortunately is unable to join us through ill health. So we wish her a good recovery and her apologies to this team. So, welcome, colleagues. We've had really quite a special opening session, putting some big challenges in front of us. What's interesting about this panel is we're going to very much benefit from the experience of the European reference networks, because that's been the underlying theme of yesterday and today. So just sort of a reminder, what we're going to be talking about. We are going to explore how advances in data, digital tools, and innovation could strengthen the diagnostic pathways in clinical care across Europe. We're going to talk, how we can embed new diagnostics into care pathways, improve our sharing of data and interoperability, and make sure that we're using real-world data in our decision-making. And I'm sure we're going to find out more from Lisbeth, more about, what this virtual process will be. But let me start by inviting Hélène to speak. You're a coordinator in ERN, and they are the sort of key tool we're looking at. And one of the core focuses is how do we reduce that diagnostic journey, which has lots of dead ends for many families and is absolutely key to rare disease patients. So let me invite you to start.
So thank you very much for the invitation. So the question is really how the ERNs can contribute in the patient care pathway in Europe. And I just want to start by reminding that the ERNs were really created by the pan-European spirit of the 2011 cross-border directive. And we have demonstrated the remarkable capacity of the EU to build a unique first ever health ecosystem devoted to 30 million patients and families. And Maurizio reminded there's a lot of people behind, and the worry of the families also around finding the best way to give a diagnosis and the cutting-edge quality of care to children and also adults. And adults are also old children, I would say. Children grow, and there is also the challenge of delivering care to patients who are senior and who have early onset conditions. So our aim is to deliver the fastest possible diagnosis. We know we have a lot of tools, genetic testing, genomic testing, and also cutting-edge quality of care. So the ERN missions are titanic. We are building a robust ecosystem, but it has to be consolidated, and we have to be to expand our mission. So first of all, we provide for diagnosis and care, borderless care with the case patient management system, the CPMS. We can share seamlessly and remotely our expertise, and this is really a proof of collective intelligence. And ERNs are really a fantastic example of collective intelligence. And for instance, ERN Ernica are really dealing with children who are born with very severe malformations, and using the system, they can share their experience, their expertise, first for better diagnosis and for better care using the cutting-edge technologies. So this collective intelligence is also very useful to train our and we will have a panel on education. But I would also like to echo what was said yesterday on keeping professionals in the rare disease area. Of course, there is Choose Europe initiative that there should not be the Leave Europe drainage we are experiencing today. So this is an alert we really have to be conscious about. Then about the registries, we are really committed, all of us, to collect data. And I think we should, and there is a panel on this, so we will speak about this later on with Marc Pereira, but not only for diagnostic procedures, but also for care and follow-up of the patients. It has to be seen as a European treasure. And data is a European treasure. We are a growing power. We have to continue on this. There is a lot of ambition around artificial intelligence, but, excuse me, the tourism, but quality of the data and the amount of data is essential, and the ERNs are here not only for the diagnostic pathway, but also for the care and innovation. So sadly, we realized yesterday that 6% of the patients only have a treatment, and innovation is really engraved in our DNA of the ERNs, and we are an invaluable bridge between life science and clinical practice. And this not only for early diagnosis, for genomics, but also for care. And this is extremely important. And why is this important? And I would like to put this on the table, is that rare diseases contribute to common diseases research. And this is not, this should be really underlined, because rare diseases with a handful of patients that are early diagnosed, that are with a precise diagnosis, enable pinpoint to targets that can be addressed then for more common diseases. And there are very noticeable examples in the literature, especially for cardiovascular diseases, and using tools that have been derived from rare diseases research to cure a lot of people. Then we have clinical trials. This is a highly important topic, not only for designing a better diagnosis, but also better care. And I would like to plead for keeping trials in the EU. Not later than Monday, I was diagnosing in a child that this child is going to become blind. And the parents were asking me, now we have the diagnosis, where can we go to get a trial? Unfortunately, for this specific condition, the trials are only in the US and in the UK. And believe me, it was very difficult for me to ask afterwards, can you sign to be committed for the registry for the European reference networks? So this is a real problem. And we plea also for transnational trials, and also equitable access, borderless equitable access to trials. And this, I would like also to say, once we diagnose a patient with a very rare gene, a very rare condition, we have, for instance, in our area, gene therapy that is accessible for just a handful of patients that are diagnosed. And it's devastating to see that in some countries in the EU, it is not possible to get access to gene therapy. So you can diagnose, but then what do you do with the diagnosis? You have really to be broader. And then I would like also to underline that the European, the ERNs are highly, do not work in silos. We work together, and I'm really glad that Mr. Sir Marmot is in the room today, because we have shown cohesion between us for crisis and disaster, especially for the COVID pandemic and also for the beginning of the Ukrainian war. And the coordinators have stood together, and we were discussing yesterday at coffee. So finally, if the ERNs wouldn't exist, what would have been our position at that time? And actually, being an ERN changed actually everything. So this is extremely important, and this is why we are collectively at the level of the ERNs. I'm drifting a little bit from your question, but I think it's very important, following Sir Marmot's presentation, that we have to be ready, prepared for crisis and disaster in the field of rare diseases. Why? Because our patients collectively are a highly vulnerable populations, and we have really identified that we need critical medicine and devices preparedness of the professionals, of the patients. We also need to enhance telemedicine. This is highly important, not only for diagnosis, but also for the care. Reshuffle care pathways in extreme conditions, including for diagnosis, but also for the care, and also the need to design transnational canals. So I will stop here just to say that ERNs are really totally embedded in the EU health initiatives. We should never forget, and just permit me a French citation from Marcel Proust, illness transforms everything. What once was just an idea becomes a destiny. So for each patient, it's highly important what we are doing here, and no one should stand behind in the EU for this. So thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. That's fine. No, you keep the microphone. Your intervention, I think, showed just how remarkable the ERNs have become, because if they were only created as an idea in 2017, and yet during the sort of greatest global health crisis the world has seen, which was just a few years later, the pandemic, they were an incredible resource that was then drawn upon, as you said, to support rare disease patients from Ukraine as a result of the conflict, where healthcare support was being heavily destroyed. So they have an example. If the criticism is often that the EU is slow and heavy and everything takes forever, the ERNs are actually a visibility that when the moment is there, the need is there, and the enabling environment is there, a lot of things can be done that then become, as you mentioned, that they are useful beyond their initial purpose, but they support a broader context. So thank you for that first intervention. Anna, let me invite you to come in now, because of course there's been a report from the European Economic and Social Committee, particularly looking at rare diseases and how Europe could have a better impact for rare disease patients and their families. So let me invite you to give us a little bit of insight what your report showed.
So first of all, thank you for the invitation. And once again, I thank you all, because this topic is so important, and it's very important to have even a year conference on rare disease. That is very important. So coming back to your question, first of all, I think that it's very important because for the moment, the promotion of ERN is very important. But there is a recent consultation coming from the European Parliament. This is called the need for stronger communication about ERN, their role and added value. An in-depth analysis of the result of the European Parliament public consultation show that European reference network, still in function since now 8 years, are still not widely known. Awareness is uneven across group, and nearly 40 of healthcare professionals are never heard about European reference network. So I think that the first step that we have to know is the better communication about the ERN with the health professional. This is probably the first step that we have to do in the future. And we have to organize. And it's not so easy because we can talk about ERN, but it's depend also of the level of health involvement of the national authorities, public health authorities, regional authorities, and local, not authorities, because at local level, what we have is the GP. And the GP is probably the person that knows probably better the situation of their own patient. So, and it's how the relation is organized at regional or local level between the communication between the hospitals and the organization of the ground level for accessibility to healthcare. And I think that is very important because often we miss this opportunity to work with the GP and to create the link with ARN and the GP. This is probably for me one of the main challenge that we have for the future to better know about the ERN and the work they are doing in the accessibility for patients on rare disease. The second element, and it's also coming from the Danish presidency, because we have an opinion, and it's my colleague from Denmark that had this opinion, and it's about technology, AI, and big data, because it also will serve the development of the ERN. And I will read, I'm sorry before that, but it's very important. In this opinion, we have highlighted the potential and opportunity of AI-based tools to accelerate diagnosis and analysis genetic data, medical record, imaging scan, identify patterns and human might miss. This is particularly crucial for children, because this is very topic important with rare genetic disease, because they need the early intervention. The first step is with children as soon as possible to have the right diagnostic on the right time. Sometimes it's too long, as you know, to have the right, and for the children it's and then the opportunity of AI could be useful. But there is also some warning about that, because gender disparities, it's also a very big problem. And AI models women are disproportionately affected by autoimmune and chronic rare disease, and wait an average of 4 years longer to receive a diagnosis for the same disease as men. This is also very important. So we can use this AI to reduce the length for a diagnostic. So this is the second steps. So how to use the AI to serve the diagnostic. And the last element is the financing. And we have the opportunity with the MFF to invest more in the research. It's a real opportunity, but it must be a priority in the MFF to recognize the importance to finance the rare disease, the ERN. It's not enough for the moment. And I feel that the future, and we see for the moment that there is a huge increase for defense, for other aspects, and I fear that in the future there will be less money for health and for research. But we must be very strong about that. if we don't have this new means of financing in the MFF, we will miss a lot of things in the future.
Thank you for that. Colleagues, just to let you know what's happening, we have a panel discussion. We've got a great set of people here, but you are part of this conversation. So you'll see up on the screen, there's a QR code. That QR code is for you to submit your comments or your questions, and I will be opening the floor a little bit later to take your input. So for those of you who are here on this in the room and those who are watching online, your comments, your contributions, your questions, please submit them. You can hold your device up there to the QR code and it will take you to where you can submit your questions. You can also see up there the 4 topics of conversation for our panel. And I think we've covered a little bit topic 1. What I'd like to do is move on to topic 2, which is, what's actually needed to build a pan-EU infrastructure that's truly, fully interoperable across systems, countries and care settings. So that's a bit of a challenge. Jens, I'm going to come to you first on that because, your organisation is already working at scale at a European level, and then Lisbeth, I'll come to you next. But Jens, help us to understand what's actually needed to make this whole thing work.
Yeah, first of all, many thanks for inviting me, to the organisers. I'm really happy and delighted to be here. And maybe let me start with yesterday's discussion on fragmentation. I think, indeed, in fact, we have a lot of fragmentation in the European research area. But there is a lot of developments and tools that can be used already out there. And I think what we should avoid is further fragmentation, because we will lose basically momentum, we will lose workforce capacities, and that I think will be very challenging. This was also a topic coming back to the Danish EU presidency event in this autumn, where there were high-level roundtable discussions looking in how to implement the European Life Science Strategy for 2030. And I think there was a great idea coming up from different roundtable discussions to actually come up with European Life Science Council that should actually look at what is already out there on development tools, infrastructures, but also what are gaps that need to be closed. And I think this might be something also helpful for implementing the declaration that you're forwarding here. In contrary to the fragmentation that we have and see in ERA, I think the rare disease community is the opposite. I think what I understand you have gained is basically aligning, coming together and working united. And I think this is what you're showing with your declaration. So I think in this aspect, your rare disease community, our rare disease community, can be best practice example, even moving forward in the implementation to using what is out there. And I think this is exactly from yesterday's discussion what I feel and hear from you that you're looking forward to. Now coming into basically more the domain I'm representing here is the European Research Infrastructure Consortia, in short ERICS. They are really set up by the European Commission to enable cross-border collaboration to foster scientific advancement and innovation. So I think, like the ERNs, we are success stories and we are seen as strategic assets, and I think we can work together very complementary. So yesterday, Jacques has already reported on how ECRIN can support on clinical trials. And we're working also very closely together with ECRIN. For instance, BBMI is coordinating a new project, thanks to European Commission support, on how we can integrate large medical cohorts and close gaps between biobanking and clinical trials. Now maybe about BBMI ERIC itself, which is a European infrastructure of biobanking and biomolecular resources. So we have a decade of experience operating a pan-European infrastructure for sensitive health data in a federated fashion, supporting the European Health Data Space, European Open Science Cloud, building the Understanding Cancer platform, but also supporting IDERA, which we discussed and heard about yesterday, but other major EU initiatives as well. So currently we are taking care of samples and data of more than 7 million citizens across 32 countries in about 500 biobanks. And this includes data from basically biochemical measurements and clinical phenotype data. So some of you are working in the clinics, it's more than 7,000 OMOP variables. It's more than 10,000 petabytes of whole slide or radiology imaging data. It's omics data, including genomes. So we're also supporting the 1 Million Genome Initiative. We are connecting to national registries, other data types like surveys or patient provided data. And to note, of those 535 collections in 161 biobanks across 24 countries represent actually rare diseases of over 500,000 patients. And this is basically, I think, something where we are already working together with ERNs or the rare disease communities across Europe. So BBMI-ERIC addresses consenting, ethics checks, processing, access, and sharing of samples and data in a federated, GDPR-conform way under FAIR principles. We have piloted the European Health Data Space, building the EOS Federation, and here we are one of the first 13 EOS nodes representing the sensitive health data space and bridging to the European Health Data Space. So supporting also DERA, I think there are close links and other EU initiatives, but we're also piloting new collaborations with industry for European competitiveness, and I think this is something to really look in together with the ERNs, and also looking into using our network in a prospective way, and I think this might be also something which we should look into prospectively. In summary, I think it's important to notice that we're not lacking solutions to make clinical data accessible cross-border. I think yet the main challenge lies in retrieving clinical data in a meaningful, potentially structured way, but also quality assured, here I fully agree with you, from the hospital information system locally. And I think this is one of the major caveats that we're all facing, and this should be not underestimated because this will not be solved by EHDS implementation. So BBMI-ERIC is working on this with our national nodes and our biobanks, but scalability really affords funding, and I think we should raise our voice together on this specific aspect. I'd like to emphasize that BBMI wants to enable scientific communities in clinical disciplines to advance by using our infrastructure tools and developments. So we are very enthusiastic to closer work with the ERN community. And furthermore, I believe that we are closely aligned in the understanding that infrastructures need a continued and sustainable funding. And this is different from competitive research funding, as otherwise fragmentation in ERA will continue to increase and we will lose opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jens. You gave us a lot of information about how you've been sort of a test case and you've piloted some of the principles that exist in the EHDS, and you've actually turned them into a sort of workable reality. So as you said, we're not lacking solutions for accessing data across borders. I wrote that down because I thought that was really important. But there are challenges around the collection of quality clinical data at sort of local, sort of in hospital level, and it's that quality control and the sort of input into the system rather than the rules of the system, because that's been put in place. Lisbeth, let me invite you to come in because we want to know, what we need in order to create a proper pan-European health infrastructure that's fully interoperability across systems, countries, and care settings. Hugely ambitious. This is something that's definitely in your area because you are from the Virtual Physiological Institute. So in theory, you're able to help us understand that. What would you like to share?
Thank you very much, Tamsin, and thank you very much for the invitation. As other colleagues already have said, many elements are already available. We have the HDS, we have the AI factories, but if you allow me a very simple analogy, that if we want to treat, if we treating the patient, if we compare that to baking a brownie, what we have been discussing is collecting ingredients and building infrastructure, building the oven, building the kitchen robot. But it's not because you have a lot of ingredients and you have some oven sitting around, that you will get a better brownie or even an edible brownie. So what you need to do that is a recipe. You need to know how to bring these things together. And that is something that AI could deliver. That's one of the technologies that can do that. But in some cases, especially when we're talking about rare and complex diseases, it is very difficult to get the data, even if the quality is there, to get enough of that. But we do have some bits and pieces of knowledge that we have already gathered over the research. So there's other ways to start from that knowledge base to get that recipe and to get the brownie working. And actually, I'm very, Sai kindly left me the honor of introducing another flagship project that was started by DG Connect, which is the virtual Human Twins initiative. And what that aims to do is actually be the cookbook. So it collects all these recipes, and it collects and it connects to all of the other infrastructure, to the ingredients, so to the data, to help people realize and get from the ingredients onto to better treatment of the patient, to make predictions on diagnosis, on treatment, on follow-up, but also the individual therapies themselves, so drug development, device development, to use all these resources that we have. And I've been in the position, I'm very grateful that I was able to lead this initiative to build the roadmap for this virtual human twins. And the first thing we did was bring together the entire ecosystem. So what the ERN is doing, we were able to establish this for the virtual human twins. So we had patients there, we had care providers there, we had the academia industry, we had policymakers, the regulators, really everybody that is involved in this entire ecosystem. And it is through this ecosystem that we were able to develop a roadmap that not just focuses on the technology, but that actually starts from the needs, from the Draghi report, from the other reports, and that explains what are the challenges, how can we deal with that technologically, infrastructure-wise, but also the ethics, the legal, the social context. And then also onto the incentives, which will be the topic of the next question. And I would like to end to echo something that Jens has said, is that we do not lack solutions. We do need to further develop them, but there's plenty of ideas around. The risk is that we are building so many infrastructures, there is more than several dozens projects that are building infrastructures, that it becomes a goal by itself rather than a means to an end, so that people get so invested in the infrastructure that they want to continue doing this. So it's really necessary to have this overarching view to see what is still lacking, what do we still need, and we don't need one of everything, but we need to be sensible in what we invest and how we invest. And I'd like to end with one thing that Dr. Heiter yesterday said, that is about the European Research Council, which often is not included in discussions like these, but I've been in the fortunate position to be a triple grantee and also a panel chair, and I see a lot of really cool and very thorough projects coming in that focus on rare diseases, because I'm sitting in the panel that focuses on the translational aspect. And I think we need to also work further with that and take that research that is being done there and really connect those researchers with all of the other initiatives that are there to make sure that we're not losing any potential in the Union.
Thank you. Sai, let me bring you in on this, because we've heard about, in your earlier message, the 15 AI factories that have chosen life sciences, pharmaceuticals, medical research. So we've got some of the opportunities. We've just heard from Lisbeth that we've got dozens of different sort of ecosystems and infrastructures being created, but there's a risk that we sort of say, oh, well, we're building the infrastructure rather than saying the infrastructure is to take us somewhere. How do you sort of make sure that the vision is very clear, that what we want is, better healthcare outcomes for the patients and the clinicians? It isn't just about saying, hey, we've got these great superhighways that connect this to that, that's wonderful, but how do we make sure we go beyond that?
So I would like to add that indeed my team is looking after the Virtual Human Twins initiative, and we also have the 1+ million genomes initiative and the cancer imaging initiative. And these are all, they are sort of health data infrastructures. They are providing solutions for healthcare. But like technically, everything can be done, but it's really about creating the ecosystem, creating the expertise, having the member states on board, like with the 1+ Million Genome Initiative that started in 2018, from an initiative by the member states. So we need also the health ministries, authorities on board, funding from member states, engagements, common agreements and standards across the board on the data side, but also on how to develop, for example, the virtual human twins that Lisbeth has been very busy working on. So this is something that of course, we have the different communities. We have radiologists, we have people working on genomics and the clinical side of things. This is also something that needs to happen on the ground in the clinics, that the experts talk to each other. So it really goes down to that level. And also, as I mentioned, the deployment of the solutions in the clinics themselves, like having the evidence created, and also, again, common agreements on how to go about with them.
Thank you. I think we'll now move on to the third question, which is, what are the opportunities and incentives for hospitals to share their expertise? Because I think we've moved from our earlier conversation saying actually there's a lot of projects going on, there's lots of approaches looking at infrastructures, ecosystems, but it all comes down to sort of the lowest level, which is the interaction in a clinic between the patient, the clinicians and the caregivers. What incentivizes them to participate, to share their experience and their infrastructure? Lisbeth, I'm going to invite you to do that. And maybe also, Hélène, you could reflect on that, because you mentioned some of the challenges of the disincentive that if there isn't an opportunity to be able to refer a patient to a clinical trial or something else, it makes it really hard to then ask the patient, say, please share your data, please contribute to knowledge without actually getting any benefit. So Lisbeth, take us through the opportunities and incentives.
Yes, thank you. My both universities have a very big university hospital, and also recently at the Belgian level, or even the Flemish level, there have been a lot of discussions on how we can actually already in that small ecosystem work together. And hospitals really have gotten the message that data is a treasure, but hospitals, of course, are also organizations that need to keep the light on. So that is a bit of a conundrum right there. In the way the Belgian healthcare system is funded sometimes does not make it rewarding to adopt new technologies, because they might, in the end, they cost investment, and they might end up actually taking away some of the income that you otherwise have by streamlining some of these technologies. So I think at the very high level, something really needs to be done to make sure that it becomes incentivized for hospitals to do that. And then at the same time, when we talk about incentives in hospitals, well, it's the healthcare providers that are actually having to deal with the patients, that actually have to annotate the data that we need to get the good quality. So from a human perspective, there is a lot of incentives that also need to be done there to avoid the fact that we get into rare doctors that flee the healthcare system because they can't cope anymore. So AI can be very powerful there to provide solutions into streamlining things, into helping with this annotation. We need to ensure that there is good work-life balance, so that there is a return on investment when people actually take the time and the effort to annotate the data. And this can be very pedestrian means. So if people are in a university hospital and there is a career perspective, making them co-author on a publication, it sounds really, really silly. I totally understand that, but we have seen in small pilot projects that these things actually work, because then they become vested in what happens to the data. And otherwise, of course, physicians, they want to see that what they are doing is actually helping to treat their patient. But at the moment, all the annotation work looks like you're doing a lot of work and then you're throwing your data somewhere off the cliff or in a black hole and nothing comes back. So if there's no clear return on investment, it's very hard to keep people motivated. So we need to have these pilot projects, these exemplars that really show if you do this, then this is coming out. So next to all of the infrastructure, these clear pilot projects that on the ground show the advances and that force hospitals into a collaborative status to get those advances and to get those pilots that then also are continued and not just dropped after all of the investments they made. That is really crucial.
Thank you. Hélène, I'll ask you to intervene, and then Jens, I'm going to come to you to sort of see how you've dealt with that challenge that Lisbeth explained, which is having got people to understand that data is treasure, then to get people to part with that treasure, especially when it might financially affect the way that they work, without necessarily guaranteeing getting something back. You've obviously solved it in your area, so we'll hear from you. Hélène.
Yeah, I think it's a very important point. So first of all, collecting data in a hospital, in an ERN hospital, for instance, this can be a challenge because it takes time. People are not rewarded directly. They don't see what is the immediate added value. So this has really to be supported because the quality of the data at the baseline is really a treasure. And so there has to be really some support for this in the hospitals, because with no data there will be no artificial intelligence, and it has to be of high quality. Another comment is about then how is the data used by the hospital. We are a lot of member states, there are a lot of different systems, and it can be quite tricky actually, because the ethical committees of the hospitals, according to in which country you are, if it's a regional system like in Italy, it's a centralized system like in France, or even in France, in each hospital, there are ethical committees. And it is, I must say, for instance, for launching the ERN registries, it is a challenge, because you are facing all these different hospitals. Not each country has its own rules. So, yeah, it would be really good, and we were speaking about the ethical committees yesterday, how it can be a bottleneck for our research and for collecting data, reassure everybody, and also have a smoother and smarter way to collect data in the EU. But at the time being, it's a national responsibility. We have to be conscious about this. So there is a discrepancy between our EU ambition and then the national reality.
Thank you. Jens.
Yeah, I would agree. So it's not contradictory, and I think we don't have to convince the clinicians and the patients. I think they know, and especially in rare diseases and also in cancer, if we talk about molecular tumor boards, cross-border is key because you seldomly have a patient alike, and you want to know what worked for a patient most alike with a phenotype. I think it's more really, as was discussed, on maybe the university clinic leadership, because it's on cost basically to provide the resources to interact cross-border. But I think what we have realized in our network is that more and more, if we come up with basically use cases that where the knowledge is benefiting the patient outcome, this is an added value also in terms of seeing as the go-to center. And this is something where university clinic leadership is very keen on having this value proposition. So exchange on knowledge has become a very clear incentive, I would say. Yet if there's funding always behind it, I think I'm coming back to the keynote this morning, is there political will? I think this is going back to the national authorities basically, and not on the European level necessarily to implement that really. But I think this is really where it comes to basically to make this happening. And I think the more we learn from cross-border best use cases, how it impacts and benefits the patient outcome, and how cost efficient it is actually for the national healthcare systems, the easier it will get to go in that direction. And we have just submitted a new call in September to have one of these use cases basically looked at from health economics side. And we hope that is going through and then can basically explored and scaled up through the European member states.
Thank you. In a moment, we're going to be coming to my colleague from the HLM team, who is keeping an eye on the questions and comments that have come from the floor. But just before we do that, Anna, let me bring you in on our fourth point, because we wanted to understand, could an EU action plan on rare diseases support some of the things that our panel have spoken about? I know it's something that was in your committee's opinion to say we need one. How would that support the connections we said we need political will? Jens has just been saying that the sort of movement of knowledge, which is very much the fifth freedom that has been spoken about by major political speeches by Commission President van der Leyen, amongst others. So there's clearly a sort of political goal to make it happen, but it also needs leadership and funding. So is a rare disease plan what we need?
Yes.
That was a quick answer. Why is it so important?
No, but yes, it's so important. It's so easy to think that without this national European plan, how can national plan can be organized, developed, being comparable, having the same data collection, sharing OFA code, for example. We haven't talked about the OFA code, but it's probably the most important thing that we have to develop now to understand and to collect information is to have the same reference at European level. So OFA code should be in this action plan as a tool, important tool for researcher, for diagnostic, and even more for therapy. So this is for me probably the most important that we must have now. And I don't understand why the Commission is so, and the Commissioner maybe, is so reluctant to go with a national European plan, European action plan on rare disease, because for me it's probably the easy way, because the rare disease is something that everybody can understand, the importance of development, research, diagnostic, because we all, one day we will probably have to go to hospital. We hope that it will be later as possible. But when we know that everybody must go in a hospital one day, it's important that we need to have the right diagnostic as soon as possible, earlier as possible. This is, yeah. You know, when I started and my colleagues started here in the room, before the year end, in my region, I live in Liège. In Liège, it's a EU-region Meuse. You have 3 hospitals. In Belgium, University of Liège. In Germany, 35 kilometers from the University of Liège, you have the University of Haken. And just the other border, near the Netherlands, you have Maastricht University. So in the suburb of one region, you have 3 important university hospitals. And we start the first project to collaborate before year-end between the researcher, the doctor, the professor didn't know about the research in each hospital. And the distance was 35 kilometers. So this is why we need this European action plan. This is to encourage a collaboration, to understand that there is a possibility, and not for the researcher or for people. It's also important that patients have the possibility just to cross the border, to make 3 kilometers to have the right diagnostic or maybe the right therapeutic. So this is why we need this.
Thank you. So it would set out the pathways for patients and expertise and knowledge. So that was a very short answer. Let me now invite our colleagues from the HLM team. You've been keeping an eye on the online comments and questions. What would you like to bring in to us?
Participants for submitting so many comments and questions. We talked a bit earlier about the incentives for hospitals to share expertise and infrastructure, but we received a very interesting comment and question. So ERNs and EU infrastructures are great, powerful tools, but many hospitals lack the tech capacity to leverage them. How can we close this gap so hospitals become engines of implementation and not bottlenecks?
That's a great question. Panel, Sila, maybe I'll invite you also to reflect on this. AI factories are great at that level, but if the hospital where the clinicians working, the patients actually getting treated, doesn't have the basic tech knowledge, not even necessarily the hardware, but the skills, and I know we're going to talk about that on the next panel, so, but, you know, how is that in the vision that the EU has?
Indeed, I mentioned the Apply AI strategy, and one of the flagships around AI-powered advanced screening centers that we are going to set up. It will be a network of voluntary hospitals, clinics. The purpose there is exactly this, to create the evidence share knowledge across clinics, and of course we are in parallel also supporting the skills part and helping IT developers understand better the healthcare landscape and the other way around. So there are these efforts, very concrete efforts to also make those hospitals who are not so advanced or who don't know how to go about to have a better understanding what can be done, what would be meaningful in our case, and we could use the experience of the early adopters and like university hospitals also to benefit smaller hospitals.
Thank you. Jens, you wanted to add in?
Yeah, I think indeed this is a very crucial question, and I think it also adds to the discussion on fragmentation, because we need to be aware that we don't have experts around the corner. So we have too few of those ones who really have the expertise to do the job. And the more they're sitting in alignment meetings or rebuilding what is actually already there, the less resources we have, so to say. I think one reason for that is that in some European member states, certain university degrees have been discontinued or decreased in bioinformatics, biomedical informatics, so to say. I know that Germany, after a certain while realizing it, has started to increase again these master degrees or university degrees. But of course, it takes time to get those workforces back on the market, so to say. I think what the European Commission was helping with were basically also European-wide training programs to help basically educating, but of course this is not the university degrees, it's more the capacity building on top of the university degrees. I think this is probably the second podium discussion today where we talk about academy and education capacity building, but indeed we should not overestimate the lack of really experts at scale at the moment.
Lisbeth, do you want to add?
Yes, it's something very practical now. If you want to implement a pilot project in a hospital, it takes the IT department a lot of time to actually get these things implemented, because the application itself has very specific ways of handling data or requirements for the data. And with every pilot project, they have to do that whole thing again, because it's never standardized. We talk about interoperability, we talk about standardization, but actually there are lots of standards already, and so you can take your pick. Interoperability at this point is still a little bit, to me, a little bit of a hollow word, because we don't know what are all the things we need to be interoperable with. So another way to do this could also be to extract some of these things, rather than every hospital having to implement that in their IT infrastructure, is to create hubs where there could be a link, so that, to use another very stupid analogy, is that you have a Netflix subscription and you can go and get all of the things that you need, but you establish all the links with a hub, rather than with every individual application itself.
Thank you. Elaine, would you like to briefly comment how you manage that in your ERN?
Just a very quick comment. I think I agree with what you just said. And it's also very difficult in public hospitals to keep the professional who are experts in IT in a public setting. So I think I see this as a major problem, because the turnover of these professionals is huge, and then to carry on projects like that is really a difficulty.
Thank you. We're almost out of time, but let me just hear if we've got further interventions or comments from the floor. How do people receive our conversation?
So we received some very interesting comments as well, also from patient representatives. For example, from the patient perspective, strengthening ERNs means strengthening collaboration, harmonizing standards of care, and making sure that expertise travels across borders. As an EPAC advocate and a patient representative, I want to stress how essential it is to fully implement and sustainably support the ERNs.
Thank you. So a lot of support from our audience. Colleagues, let me invite you to now just give us a sort of 1 or 2 sentence to close, because we've run a little bit into the coffee break, and I know people would like a break because we've got a packed agenda today. So let me invite you just to have your sort of closing statement. Sala, I'll start there. What would be your final message?
So, as I said in my presentation, I would see that the rare disease community should really look into what's happening at the European level in building the infrastructures and the AI capacities, high-performance computing, and all these different deployment activities to also tap into those possibilities offered by the EU.
Thank you. Lisbeth.
Yeah, if we want to get further, faster, and fair, we do need to work together and not just provide lip service to that statement, but actually make sure that when we're talking about AI in health, that everybody's represented and not just AI specialists, so that we bring the ecosystem together, and that is where it starts, really from the ecosystem.
Thank you. Jens.
Yeah, let's work together, less fragmentation, address that, and let's keep in mind the data at source. This is a key issue that should be looked at on quality and scale.
Quality and scale of data. Thank you. Ellen.
So just to conclude, the ERNs are really a showcase of all these very brilliant projects, and I think we really have to stick together and to show that we are a paradigm, really, to how strong EU can be and how being together is really at the service of our patients. So, yeah, let's be strong and not weak.
Thank you. Alain.
Yes, once again, we need an action plan. Secondly, we need the use of OFA code. It's compulsory. There is no other possibilities. We need close collaboration, kind of partnership with hospitals, GP, and all the organizations that work along a site, like mutual affair organization, patient organization, that are very helpful in what we try to build here. That is 3 key messages. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, and so maybe one last sentence. I think that we need also solidarity, because of course the expert can go to the patient, but sometimes the patient must go to where the treatment is. And if we take the case of Cyprus, you know that coming from Cyprus to here, it's 4.5 hours. So, and can you imagine for a patient that has a rare disease going for a treatment once a month during 1 year, if you don't have a European solidarity to support this kind of problem, what is the essence of Europe?
Thank you. I think on that question, it's a perfect example to end. So thank you to Sala, to Lisbeth, to Jens, to Hélène, to Alain, and best wishes to Ilaria, and her apologies for not joining. Thank you for your patience. Apologies that we ate into your coffee break a little bit. It's 11:10. Can I invite you to be here at 11:35? The coffee's just outside the room, so you don't have to go far. So let's take a 25-minute break. Thank you.